Bike, quick circuit, and then finish off with the incline walk. So it was good. Sweaty one. Yes. Yes. Absolutely. It feels like they play a lot of football. So I don't know how they get it done, and I don't know what the rules are and all that. But the Alabama product feels like those guys play a lot of ball. You get a really polished product, and there's a toughness to them. It feels like they know what they're there for, is to play ball. So there aren't a lot of questions asked about what you're asking them to do. They show up and they do what they're asked. They know it's their job and they take pride in it. So that's kind of the guys that I've been around, whether it's in Seattle, Tampa, or now here from Alabama. Yeah. No plan to fix Bryce Young. I think for me, it's about building an offense that we can be proud of, something that is tough, something that is smart, that takes care of the football. Number one, we got to create more explosives, and then of course we have to minimize damage with exotic pressures and things like that. So I think just elevating the whole group, and really asking Bryce to just do his part. And that kind of, without getting really into the specifics of it, but I have had a lot more chance to really dive into some film since the last time we've talked, and so I have a specific plan. Can't wait to put that into play. But again, we're not talking about a guy that there's a big fix for, really. You're looking at an accurate player, a really smart player. He's aware of what's happening, and we got to build the whole thing around him, the whole offense around him, of something that we can really say this is our identity and our core. It's really not something we can do right now to really spend time and dig into those. But between Will Harriger and I, and of course Brad Idzik, but Will Harriger's our quarterbacks coach, comes to us from the Dallas Cowboys, and he and I have just been sitting down and we're just kind of mapping out, just a really detailed report. I take it back to Brian Schottenheimer when he came to Seattle and he launched me on a project. He said one of the things he did for Andrew Luck, for Phillip Rivers, for Drew Brees, is before he had a chance to meet with them the first time, he had a detailed plan about how to improve the things necessary to play quarterback at a high level. And he showed me the report. He showed me the cut-ups that kind of went with it all. And then he challenged me. He said, you will earn another level of respect with Russell by approaching it from a detailed standpoint. So we're really working on that. I really respect Bryce and the road that has taken him to here. And I want to be able to present something to him that's tangible, that's specific, and says, hey, here's some things that we can really dive into and improve on. Here's things that you're doing great. So we'll have a great plan when he comes back to us in a couple of weeks.
So Brad's kind of been on the journey with
yeah.
Obviously, you guys go way back even to when John
Yeah.
was around.
He's also my personal trainer. So, but yes, continue.
Okay. So with that said, as a personal trainer and coaching, what does he do well as a teacher?
Yeah, Brad's fantastic. So this goes back to when we hired him in Seattle as quality control. He came in, he was organized, he was professional. His visuals were really awesome. Just the deck that he put there with his PowerPoint, how he told his story, how he brought to life kind of the lineage, his dad, his grandpa, all kind of having that professional football background. And he just told us a cool story, about who he was and where he was at and his aspirations in coaching. And then he was good for it. And he showed us every day by just coming to work, by adding value, by studying things, maybe rounding us off in ways that we weren't looking at, even as a quality control guy. And then, of course, when I get to Tampa, he's my right-hand guy. The reminders, it was a couple of years in Seattle, so he would say, hey, remember a couple of years ago during OTAs, we did this, this, and this, and so that's where, my dad kind of taught me, make sure you surround yourself with people who are smarter than you are. So he's one of those people. He's got my back, and I really feel covered by the way he does his job. And then, of course, just his first time coaching wide receivers last year, he really had a lot of experience at Stanford, but last year having his own room, going in there with a couple of really established players, but then having some young guys who really needed help, developing in Trey Palmer and Rock Jarrett, and Devin Tompkins, and then of course we brought David Moore in, kind of teaching a new system, and to watch him really develop those guys, to utilize our staff as well to surround them with support. That's the heart and soul of what I'm about as a coach, the heart and soul of what Brad's about as a coach. So for me coming here, it's like, okay, this is the culture that we need. We have more teachers on our staff, but then maybe there might be some guys who might need to see, hey, this is how we support our players. We love these guys. Let's bring out the most. Let's maximize their talents, and that's what he's about. So I'm fired up to just have him again in my corner here as we build something special.
Are there things about the other position groups on offense that you maybe learned in the last month that you didn't realize you had coming into this job?
That's a pretty detailed question. I want to go player by player, really, but I think what I am learning about the group is it's a tough group, and they want to play the style of football that we want to play. It starts with the run game, and then that kind of opens things up, But I can't say enough about just a group that stayed together, that played hard all the way through the last game, and I can't imagine the challenge they were faced, the 2-15 schedule and the challenges, the emotional challenges to show back up and go right back to work. So I got to give the guys a lot of credit in that regard, though. Hey. Yeah. It was maximizing our talents. That's the biggest thing for me was as we approached the challenges of last year in Tampa and we looked at our offensive roster and we really didn't make a lot of moves in the offseason. We were strapped for cash for different reasons. In the draft, we really went defense outside of Cody Mauch, so we said, okay, well, boys, this is what we got. So let's start figuring out a starting point, and having Mike really gives you a starting point. They roll coverage. They allocate resources from either from the line of scrimmage, from the secondary, or from the linebackers pushing that way. And so how can I then take advantage of the one-on-one matchups on the other side? In the run game, if we're going to get cloud defense to Mike Evans' cover 2 defense, well, there's running lanes over here. There's screen game over here for Rachaad White. How can I take advantage of that? And so, for me, I think, Rick, one of the things is I go back and forth from Charlotte to Tampa to see my family, and I run into Bucks fans in the airports and they say, man, you guys really overachieved. And I just hate that, because we didn't overachieve. We maximized what we had. We used the best of Rachaad White. We used the best of Cade Otton. We found a way to get Chris Godwin going, even though it took us most of the season. And, questions I was answering really all season. But I was really proud of the way Goody, Joe, Brad, the whole group really rallied around our players and said, guys, this is what we have. How can we maximize this to put us in a position to have success late in the season, to give us a chance to win the division so we can try to make a playoff run. And that's what ended up happening. And it was hard, but seeing those hard days and doing hard things together, that's how you build chemistry. That's how you build, really family. And so really coming away from it with Joe and Goody, like, this is my family. Those guys covered me and really helped me in the transition with Coach Bowles, and culturally said, hey, these are the things. When he says this, he really means it. If he says it this way, it's a suggestion. And so those are some of the things that they really had my back on. And so I really appreciate it. I'm just thrilled to be able to have them as a part of what we're doing.
Last year, you had to play the Panthers twice.
Yeah.
Looking at their for those 2 games, what really stood out about their defense?
Derek Brown, Brian Burns, great scheme. Also, I've played against this scheme for a number of years now. Seattle, this is the Rams scheme, and it's kind of starting to move its way around the NFL. But Ajero, one of the guys who I really respect in this profession, and to just see the way that he makes intelligent calls. And really, to me, when you see good coordinators, defensive coordinators, they make specific calls in a 2-minute drill when you're in tempo. They know how to get those calls in a timely fashion. I think of right before the half in Carolina at the end of the season, they call a timeout. We have a few seconds left, calls a timeout, changes the call based on what my formation was, crushed our play. We threw it away. We ended up getting a field goal out of it, but I was hoping for more. Those type of things are what I saw from the Panthers defense, and the way that they got those guys to communicate in short order. Talk about taking two safeties who don't come from this defensive scheme and really getting Xavier and Vaughn to be able to play well together and really tie the whole thing. You know, you lose Shaq Thompson early, and they were able to get Kamu to play at the level that he did, and Frankie Luvu to kind of highlight some of the things he did. So then I watch a defensive coordinator do a lot like what we're trying to do, which is how can I maximize the talent that I'm given? Okay, so we lose a starting linebacker. What can these other linebackers do? And then just trying to create pressure different ways. So yeah, I think I know that's a lot, but there's a lot that I appreciated about this defense, and they played us really hard twice last year. So it was a real challenge. It was huge. I mean, that was the whole part of my master plan. I'm like, hey, Mr. Tepper and Mrs. Tepper, you know, like, I'll fix the offense. You know, you kind of have what's in place here. And Ajero, I really have high respect for him. And, you know, it was a real selling point of mine is like, if we can just get this done, you know, to have these two guys, this is a dream team of sorts, you know, really to put these two young guys who are committed to their players, committed to these schemes. So I'm excited to, you know, to go against them every day in practice, you know, and to see the evolution of the offense and defense as we face each other and kind of learn the ins and outs of what we're doing. So I can't say enough about how big that has been.
You were just references, I think, the Week 18 game.
Yeah.
I've heard coaches say when they come into a new place, especially when the coach has been fired, like mid-season.
Yeah.
Did you watch like the last month of the Panthers games to sort of see who was playing and who was like available?
You're talking about right now, or are you talking about going into the last week of the season?
Like, since you've been hired here.
Yes. So that's kind of been the painstaking, slow, methodical approach to make sure that I know Carolina Panthers 2023. It took me about 2.5, 3 games to get emotionally involved in Panthers football to where I'm like, we got to pick this up. Like, so I'm all in, you know, and actually, you know, I'm just now finishing up kind of watching those in detail. There's cut-ups, you know, there's self-scout. I've been able to be in those meetings with the Ajero and kind of learning our defense, and that's been really fun too, just as a clinic. You know, I just feel like a kid. I'm here, I'm learning all the ins and outs of a defense I've been trying to attack for a long time, and to see it done really well has been great. But yeah, so I've been kind of learning that.
And I'm sorry, I probably didn't.
Yeah.
So they make the coaching change. Have you
Yeah.
gotten to that point in the schedule, and how did the film look after they made the coaching change? Because in those situations, as you know,
Yeah.
sometimes film, you know, show up.
Again, it did feel like a shift, you know, because offensively, you know, with Frank not being there, there was a shift in kind of, you know, who's calling it, and I've kind of watched the growth of the offense after they changed play callers through it, you know, and so there's another challenge and another transition for the players there. But again, I can't say enough for the spirit of the team that kind of saw some big changes happen and a group of guys to stay together and finish.
Dave, kind of building off that, there were rumblings at the beginning of the season that Bryce was overloaded with information.
Yeah.
Is simplifying the offense for Bryce going to be a priority for you?
That's kind of always a priority for me. So I don't want to speak too much about the staff before. I wasn't in those meetings. I don't know what he was being asked. But as a starting point for us, it's going to be finding the scope of this offense, finding the scope of each player, and saying, how much can we do? And then let's try to push the envelope. Let's just do a little bit more. And then see if we can kind of expand that and grow that as the season goes along. But we definitely just have to have a core identity in the spring, in training camp, so that we can just get good at our fundamentals. The focus for this year has been, let's just get our football right. Let's take care of the ball. Let's have sound run IDs. Let's have sound protection. Let's get the ball out on time. Let's be where we're supposed to be. Let's have great execution at a very basic and fundamental level, and then we can start to expand and grow the system from there. Yeah.
With that, where does Miles Sanders kind of fit into this window?
I think it's too early to talk about the depth and the starters and all that stuff. I just know we have some phenomenal talent on our roster that can really help us.
What did you see from Miles and whatever film you watched?
Saw some explosive plays, saw a versatile player. Chase Edmonds in Tampa, who we had. There's some similarities. Miles has a little bit more power in his run style, so I'm excited to see what he brings.
Dave, with the quarterback and wide receiver background, there's a lot of young play callers in the league who kind of scale away from the run in the midst of the action.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, based on the struggles you guys kind of had from a statistical standpoint last year, what
Yeah.
did you learn as a play caller about the run game that you can bring into this year?
Never give up on the run game. So we saw a lot of really frustrating games last year. We had some 68-yard rushing games, and we averaged about 76 yards for the first half of the season. And I just kind of shared in these settings, like, we're not going to stop running the ball. Now, within reason, we have to find a way to score points. So that was a challenge in and of itself, but you have to be able to run the ball to go where we want to go ultimately, which is number one, to win the division, win the South, and then to win deep in the playoffs. And if you watch the teams that go far, it's the teams that can run, because I promise you, the pass rush gets better every week you advance in the playoffs. And then you go to now we're down to 8, and the pass rush just gets better in Detroit. And then if you make it to that Final Four, man, did you look at the 4 teams that were in the conference championships? You look at the pass rush, you better be able to run the ball. So it's something that I'm going to be stubborn about. It's something that I'm going to be committed to. It's how you create explosive plays in the play action, but then it's also how you're able to neutralize a really good offense on the other side by running the ball, by having not game management all the time, but also just being balanced and mixing those in allows you to have that time of possession to a point where, okay, let's even this thing out a little bit here. So I'm excited about proving to all of you how stubborn I can be about trying to figure out the run game. And we went from 76 yards a game to 96 yards a game by the end of the season. By no means were we one of the prolific rushing teams, but I was proud of the fact that we had a chance to go franchise record 4 straight 100-yard games. That was because we didn't give up on it. We just kept working the problem. And then Goody and Joe and the run pod in Tampa was just finding those runs that fit us. What fits Rachaad White? What fits this offensive line? And we'll be able to do the same thing in Carolina.
Okay, last question.
What are your expectations for him coming into the season?
Oh, just incremental growth. Just get 1 week better. For him, just a big, strong, fast athlete. I can't wait to meet him. I can't wait to just get to know him. I did his evaluation coming out. So just to be able to be a part of that on a day-to-day basis, I'm really excited about that.